Good afternoon. Another day working on the 1975 Shovelhead. Now that we've got the battery box removed, we are ready to remove the oil tank, or the oil bag depending on what you prefer to call it. What I need to do next is get the lift down lower so you can see what I'm doing, and we'll work through the process of getting this thing removed. Okay, if you've been watching the series, you've seen the rest of this bike come apart. Now we're at the point where it's time to remove the oil tank, or the oil bag. One of the things that's already done for us is this isolator right here is not connected to the tab it should be connected to. So this thing is already pretty free. The only things you really have to do at this point is remove the oil lines. There are two oil lines on the top of the oil bag here, and I'm going to go ahead and undo these. Again, these lines are probably in really terrible shape, so we'll end up cutting them just to get them to come apart. You will lose a little residual oil when removing the oil bag itself. Now that I've got the bike back up in the air, you may remember this oil line that we removed last time. Obviously, as you can see, it is leaking a little bit of oil yet. So we'll move our catch can underneath and we'll pull this thing back out. Again, that's going to leak out more oil. They do that. Now that we're on the left-hand side of the bike, you'll see there's a lower mount right here. This should be a 7/16 nut, and we're going to go ahead and get on there and loosen that next. Finagling the wrench in this location is always a fun time. It's a limited amount of workspace. Obviously, some of the wiring is in the way. I could have removed that and tried to get some of that stuff out of there. These things are kind of stiff and almost petrified. I'm not sure it would have helped me a whole lot, but anyway, I was able to get the nut off of this stud here. The next thing you want to do is you want to remove that oil cap one more time. You want to get as much clearance on this as possible. Now we're ready to fight this thing out. This is where the fun begins. So you'll pull the oil tank forward here and you'll remove it from this stud at the bottom here first as much as possible. And then slowly try to swing this thing up and out of the way. Obviously I have a line on the other side that's kind of stuck and that's going to fight me too. And some of this wiring is in the way, so I may need to clip that just to be able to get this to slide through. Now that I've clipped the wiring and it's out of the way, I'm looking at this, and as you can see, someone has used some household speaker wire to wire up the tail light. A pretty common thing on these old bikes. You'll see a lot of speaker wire and different household items used to wire these things. Not that it's good practice, and you shouldn't do that. It'll work in a pinch, but it shouldn't be a permanent solution. As you can see, we're working with a limited amount of space here, and with this lower line in the way, and with everything else in the way, it's hard to remove these oil bags. We're going to attempt to remove this isolator to give us a little bit more room. Hopefully this thing will loosen up and not just turn. And thankfully it looks like this one may come apart nicely. Now with this isolator out of the way, I think I have enough room to finagle this and push it through to the right-hand side of the bike. Now from the right-hand side of the bike, I should be able to pull this all the way through. A couple spots of this will probably get hung up on a little bit, but hopefully there's just enough room to squeak this thing out of here. What we're hanging up on right now is there is this bracket here that holds these lines in place. So I'm going to go ahead and loosen this up so I can swing this out of the way. This should be a 1/2 inch stud here, and I should be able to loosen this up just enough to get this thing to swing out of the way. The only purpose of that is to hold these oil lines in place. Now with that out of the way, I should be able to pull this oil bag out the rest of the way. And as you can see, we have one chrome oil tank out of the way. I'm going to tip this up so I don't lose oil all over the floor and make a giant mess. And as you can see, that really opens things up. Now we can get to the starter, we can get to the rest of the transmission, we can get to a lot more parts here now that that's out of the way. Obviously, as you can see, Removing the oil bag does have its challenges. There's a bunch of bracketry in there that it gets caught on. There's a bottom mount here. There's the back mount there. Those are on the right-hand side, right on the bottom. The two tabs that are on the bottom there. This oil line, the cap, and of course everything in the frame that's working against you. This is a little bit more of a difficult project. I always forget which direction these things come out. For some reason, I always try to pull it the wrong way first, and then I'm pushing it through, and sometimes the tabs are bent so bad they don't actually come out easily, and you almost have to remove the starter before you can remove the oil tank, just to give yourself a little bit more room. Of course, if you like the video, feel free to give it a like, give it a thumbs up. If you have comments or questions, drop those comments below. Maybe you've taken out an oil bag that's given you a fit and you want to talk about it, please do that. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, hit that subscribe button. I've got the rest of this bike to take apart, and I'm going to make a video on each individual piece. So if you want to follow along, you should be subscribed. As always, friends, that's it for me today. We'll catch you next time.